Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to start with a question. How many of you know how delicious the flesh of a child is? No, really, I mean like eating a human child. No?
Tasty.
Tasty, yes. I've heard so. Now, I wasn't really expecting any of you to know this, but in the 1920s, a very famous essay written by a man named Jonathan Swift tried to describe how, at the age of 1 year old, a child is at their most tasty. Now, I'm not expecting anyone here to go out and try this. I don't want you to find out if this is true or not. But it's important to understand why this was written. Why would anyone possibly go and write about eating children? Now, to do this, first we have to understand Ireland in the 1700s. So, in the 18th century, Ireland was suffering from poverty, from famine. There wasn't enough food for people to go around. They had a population of about 1.5 million, which they thought was too much. And as well as this, they had a lot of colonial presence. So England had invaded, and they were then present. And it wasn't an easy place to be. The Irish government had been left completely powerless due to being ruled by the English. Any authority remained in England. And Ireland was ruled by English Protestants who really heavily persecuted the Catholic population at the time. So you had religious conflict as well as socioeconomic differences. So overall, the country needed help. And one common practice during this time was that of political pamphleteering. Right? The idea behind this is that so-called experts on social, legal, and economic issues wrote policy which they gave to the Irish government to enact. And oftentimes these policies were based on very dispassionate and uninvolved statistics and theories without much acknowledgement for the effects it had on the actual people itself, in particular, any empathy for the poor. Now, Jonathan Swift had issues with this, and by the 1720s, it was very clear that these policies were not working. So, to show his issue and criticism of the way this whole thing worked, Jonathan Swift went out and he wrote his own policy. Now, what he wrote was a modest proposal for preventing the children of poor people from being a burden to their parents or the country. Now, what he tried to do was use an opinion which would have been quite popular at that time, especially with the elite and the wealthy, that the children of poor people were a burden to the country, that they were very, very difficult and had negative impacts. So what he did was he used statistical analysis, he used financial calculations, and he expressed exactly how much it cost the country to raise the children of the poor. He calculated how much it cost landowners to have poor people living on their land. Now, the reason he did this was not to actually criticize the poor, but rather he followed the exact same style which most of the policies at that time would. And now what he said that anyone who could come up with a way of making these children useful to society deserved a statue made after them and would be the preserver and savior of the nation. He thought he had such a solution. And then he suggested eating children. Right? So the idea behind this is that he was trying to parody the way that the politicians of the time, these pamphleteers, the way they made their policy. The first half of the essay looks exactly like any other piece of policy at the time. And what he tried to do was, by using exaggeration, show how hypocritical these policies were, because they did not acknowledge any effects on people. He tried to show through this exaggeration and hyperbole how the very logic which these people used could be used to advocate something as morally indefensible as eating a child, right? So basically, he used their own tactics against them. And now, you can ask, what's important about this? Why is this relevant in today's world, you know? why do we care about an essay which was written in 1729 and how he made fun of politicians at the time? Well, the thing is, it was actually quite a big deal. When he came out with this, it became a very big piece of literature. And if we apply this situation, if we consider some of the problems which we face in today's world, right? Let's try and see how we can relate Swift satire to them. Now, I tried to come up with some of the main issues which we face today, and three of the biggest ones I could come up with, one of them being, which many of you here are familiar with, is endless conflict in the Middle East. There's regularly, it seems that there is some form of conflict going on within the Middle East. Most of you here will be familiar with the damage and the suffering which one man can cause. I think this is the same for people across many countries in this region. Individuals, single people like Bashar al-Assad or Abu Bakr al-Baghdad, just people, men, have brought suffering to families, homes, and countries all across the world. And these are all by the actions of individuals. Similarly, another one of the big issues is connected to this is that of the global migration crisis and refugees seeking asylum these days. Now, I'm distinguishing between the two because refugees are often displaced due to conflict in their home countries. They fear for their own safety, and oftentimes this is because of men like Assad or al-Baghdad, right? They face persecution and violence in their countries, and therefore they must flee. People who migrate because of economic reasons, they migrate often because of similar men and their greed. They have lost hope in their own countries. They have lost hope in having a future there. So they try to find a future elsewhere. Once again, this is because of the actions of individuals, of men who are in power. And yet another one, which I'm sure most people here are familiar with, is the rise of Islamophobia these days. Now, this is because of selfish and dishonest men, such as one of the gunmen involved in the Paris attacks, right? People who smoke cannabis, drink alcohol all the time, but then they go out and they kill in the name of Islam. A similar person, someone like Donald Trump, this guy who is running for presidency in the US, and he suggests banning all Muslims from entering the USA. If elected, he may have Muslims wear special ID badges to differentiate them from everyone else. People like this, selfish, dishonest people, they've caused a rise of hateful prejudice against Muslims and Islam across the world. Now, with these three sets of problems, what I've tried to highlight is that they have similar reasons behind all of them. In each case, it is the actions of a few men in power who are greedy, who are selfish, arrogant, which lead to such problems. And now, why would I relate this to Swift? The reason is, what Swift did in his situation, he faced such people. He faced overwhelming odds and a very difficult situation, and what he chose to do was to parody them. He recognized that the policymakers of his time relied on their reputation, as many people do, as do the people who are responsible for the problems which I have listed. Someone like Donald Trump can only remain popular or go into power if he has the support of voters. Someone like al-Baghdad can only maintain ISIS's existence based on fear. They need to be able to recruit young people who are willing to die for their ideals. Now, similar to the people in Jonathan Swift's time, these men rely on their reputation. So, what I'm suggesting is if we recognize that they rely on a reputation, be it of fear, be it of being a strong leader, what we can do is to strip them of that reputation. Similarly to how Swift did by exposing how the hypocrisy of his politicians could support something like eating children, we strip these men who have caused suffering across the world of their reputation. And now, there are many ways to do this. For me, I believe in satire. Satire is a form of political comedy or criticism be it through art, through social media, any kind of way, to sort of make fun of the people responsible for these terrible things. It's important to say now, we're not talking about making fun of people who have been victims of these tragedies. But that is a different thing, but what we are talking about is making fun of those who are responsible. Because in such situations, we're able to strip them of their high pedestal. They believe in a certain sense of arrogance and rely on this reputation, which, when they are mocked, when they are made fun of, is taken away from them. ISIS cannot recruit people if the whole world is laughing at them. Donald Trump cannot be elected if people don't believe in him. And now, here in Libya, you're already familiar with the use of satire, with the use of artistic criticism. During the revolution in Tripoli, we had images like this. Artistic images which used a sort of exaggeration or hyperbole to show the hypocrisy of the men responsible. A man like this does not look like the strong leader of a country, right? And across the rest of the world, people are using criticism, they are using satire to deal with these issues. Going on from here, I'm going to show you, this is a picture of a wedding in Egypt. This man did not tell his wife, but he decided to have an ISIS-themed wedding. He got all of his friends to dress up like ISIS, they came with swords, and then they all danced in a cage at the party. This was made very public, they had disco music, and this, as you can understand, ISIS is not happy about this. This doesn't look very scary. There's a video behind this, I wish I could show it, but this isn't very scary. It mocks them. ISIS don't seem as big and powerful as they would like to be. Similar to this, there was a social media movement started a few weeks ago, or a few months ago this year, where they decided to replace all ISIS propaganda with ducks. This does not look like scary jihadists to me. I don't think they would be able to recruit anyone if all their pictures look like ducks and have rainbows on them. So what I propose, in such a sense, is attacking or criticizing those people responsible. And I mean, I'm really amused at the creativity of some people. They even managed to find a doll that looks like Donald Trump, right? So small things like this can often seem insignificant, but luckily for us, unlike Jonathan Swift, we live in a world of technology and of social media. If I post this picture on my Facebook, straight away it goes to 6 different continents. Imagine if everyone in this room posts this same picture. The number of people which it could reach is incredible, and the impact it could have on the way people perceive someone like this. He's not going to be the president of the US. That's just not possible, right? So what I'm suggesting is that small acts may seem insignificant. However, collectively, together, by mocking these people who rely on their reputation, we strip them of power, we strip them of credibility, and we prevent them from being able to do further damage. Thank you very much.